It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show, only on Secular Media Network.
All right, everybody, this is Phil Ferguson, and you are, of course, listening to the cleverly titled Phil Ferguson Show. This is show number 183, and I've got two discussions today. A little bit later on, we're going to be talking to Mary, and that is her code name, and you'll understand why. We're going to talk about her investments and how horribly bad they went and what we have to do to fix them. But before we get to that, of course, I've got Matt Wilbourn. He is come to some fame because he tried to give away $100. Is that right, Matt?
That is correct, Phil. Yes.
So you were being nice, right? You were being cool, and you gave someone $100.
Yes, I was at work. A young lady came in and was asking for her intention wasn't to ask for donations when she came in, but she handed me a flyer, and it was for the Murrow Indian Children's Home powwow fundraiser event that they're having in October. And she, just kind of handed me the flyer and said anyone there could make a donation if they wanted. And I looked down at it, and I saw, the check box to just donate $100 if I wanted. So I said, you know what, I'll donate $100. So she was elated, and I handed her $100 cash. I filled out the form, and that's where everything went south.
Now, you had mentioned at some point that she said, "God bless you," right?
Yes, I wrote on the form. I put my wife, my wife's name and my name on the form, and at the bottom it asked if there is any organization or person you would like to honor, and I put the Muskogee Atheist Community. My wife and I are the founders of the Muskogee Atheist Community, and I'm proud of that. I wanted the Murrow Indian Home to know that we support them, and when I handed her the form, that's when she said, "God bless you." She didn't look at the form. I guess maybe she would have said that, or maybe she would have. I don't know.
Well, yeah, maybe she would. And you know what? No harm in that. That's what she believes. That's her genuine way of thanking you for donating real money, which actually does exist in the world. And you didn't give it because you were getting any kind of eternal reward. You just thought it'd be nice to help the kids.
Absolutely. And at the very moment when I, handed her the $100, I didn't know that it was they were funded in large part by the American Baptist Churches Association. I've always thought, since I was a child, that it was funded by, the Cherokee Nation or the Creek Nation or Katua. Or I just assumed it was, directly affiliated with one of the tribes here in Oklahoma. But she called me back about an hour later and told me she couldn't accept the donation because of what I wrote at the bottom about the atheist community of Muskogee Atheist Community, and that she wouldn't be able to accept the donation.
Well, I mean, who's going to see that information? I mean, are they putting it on their website? Is there some directory somewhere?
Well, there were different tiers, if you will, of if you make a donation of $100, they'll put your organization or your personal name on the program for the event. And if you donated, say, $500, they would put your name, I don't know, maybe in a newspaper. I don't know. I didn't read the whole thing.
So how does it hurt? How does it hurt them to mention your group?
Do what now? I'm sorry.
How does it hurt them to mention your group?
I don't know. Maybe they didn't want it. That was what she said. It goes against everything they believe in, and I guess it hurt or it burned. I don't know. I don't know why they didn't want to accept a donation from an atheist.
The hyperbolic phrase that it goes against everything. What the fuck does that mean? Oh, by the way, you can swear on my show. It goes against everything. I mean, baptism, Jesus rising from the dead, it goes against everything, helping children, everything. That's pretty grand and sweeping. And so what did you decide to do instead of just running away and hiding after this $100 was offered back to you?
Well, when she told me that, at first I was upset. I felt discriminated against immediately. Then I started thinking, there's children involved here. There are children that she's taken this $100 away from, putting clothes on their back or whatever, and that's when I decided it's time to there's a problem there, and it needs to be addressed, and I contacted media, and that's how this all really started. I even talked to my members of the Muskogee Atheist community. I said, would y'all are we in agreement that $250 is if we raise the amount, just try to get them to accept it? Everyone agreed. Then someone said, let's start a GoFundMe account. And I'd never done that before. And honestly, when I created it, I thought that when you set the goal amount, which we set it at $1,000, I thought that meant that's where it stopped. And
Sure.
I woke up the next morning, looked at my phone on the app, and it was at $2,800. I was almost in tears. And then I guess we got, 10 times that amount?
Yeah, so what's the final amount you collected?
$28,820, I believe. And now after taxes and fees and all that mess, GoFundMe took around $4,000 out. So the final amount, I'm not sure what, and we haven't mentioned this on the show yet, but $5,106.47 is going to the Murrow home if they'll accept it. If they won't accept it, I've spoken with a local reverend. He is going to accept the money in the form of a cashier's check, and he's going to try to present it to them. And the rest of the money, which I think it's around $20,000, is going to Camp Quest, Oklahoma. I'm sure most of your listeners know who that is.
Yeah, and it's funny. So you have to, you've got to basically launder the money to get them to take $5,000 in cash to help poor kids out.
That's such an ugly word, but yes, that's what we're going to have to do. And I have informed GoFundMe that that's what we're doing. And I will say GoFundMe has been very stringent in releasing that money to us. It is going into my wife's personal bank account, and as soon as we get that money, and actually that's what I was doing before you called me today, was just refreshing my email to see what is going on. Why is it taking so long? And as soon as it goes in, we're going to the bank. We'll get cashier's checks made, one for Camp Quest and one for the Murrow home, and that should be the end of it.
And so are you actually going to take a $5,000 check to the Murrow home and see if they'll take it?
I'm going to try that myself. I'll probably I may contact the original lady that interviewed me on the local NBC news station if she would like to come with me with a camera. Just, and if they accept it, just think of how warm that would make everyone feel that they accept it, we shake hands, here's the money, it's on television, everyone knows. Or I may not do that. I don't know. I don't really know. This is not something that I'm accustomed to doing. I'm trying to do everything right. And so far, I feel like I have, but, I've got naysayers. They're just a handful of naysayers in a sea of supporters, but they're still naysayers.
Well, the internet is full of trolls, and I could see someone thinking that, and I would imagine at some point a little teeny bit of what you or someone was thinking was, let's make a big deal to show them how bigoted they are. And, okay, You know what? I think there's merit to that idea because they turned down your dirty atheist money, and that's not cool. It's for the kids, and I know I would be tempted to be a little spiteful, but if a little bit of spiteful means that instead of $100, the kids get $5,000, I think overall it's a wonderful thing. And matter of fact, the nice thing about it, even if they don't accept this, you try this alternate path to get them the money. On top of that, Camp Quest gets $20,000.
Correct.
So
Camp Quest is definitely getting that money.
That is amazing that you have to go to these lengths. It's an interesting thing. My mom in the past has given to a Indian school up in South Dakota, and it turns out it's run by a Catholic church, and she gives them $10, 2 or 3 times a year. And when I pulled their, I can't remember, the 1099, whatever the report they have to file as a 501c3, turned out they're sitting on a pile of $27 million in cash.
Oh, is that? Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah. So it might be something fun for the listeners to do to go. You don't have to do it, but someone can pull that up, or maybe I'll pull it up and talk about it in another show because, not all charities are the same. Some charities are really, really, really good and efficient with the money. Other charities are basically set up as a front to pay the wages of the people that run the charity, and as long as they give a good chunk of the money away, they're basically still legitimately a charity, even if they don't do anything with the money themselves.
Right.
But,
I'm somewhat aware that the Murrow Indian Home, they receive Title I funding from the government, And I don't know the legalities here, but if they're denying a donation, or rejecting, I should say, a donation, that would seem to me that the government would step in and say, no, wait a minute, you can't have Title I funding anymore if you're rejecting donations from your choosing.
Yeah, that would seem like...
I could be wrong.
It would seem reasonable that, if you're getting government aid, that you would have to be fair, but that opens up a whole lots of cans of worms.
No kidding. And something else for them to think about, that Title I money comes from taxpayers. I'm a taxpayer, aren't you, Phil?
Yeah, indeed.
We're atheists. I just think that, I typed up a message on Facebook, and I don't know if it's reached the Murrow home, but in so many words, to kind of paraphrase what I said, this was one person's bad decision for the entire organization. I would admit a mistake of mine is that I didn't back down. I feel like I did it right. They're getting $5,000 instead of $100. But maybe I should have taken the Muskogee Atheist name off there and just let them have the $100 in my own personal name and my wife. But I admitted to that mistake, and I asked them, will you please admit to yours? Admit that you've made a mistake and accept this money, please. It's just one person helping another person. That's all this is.
Now, didn't someone else create a new GoFundMe that was a religious one to try to get more money for the school?
Yes, they did. A local pediatrician did that, and I don't want to say it backfired, but maybe in his eyes it did, because he took the page down within, I'd say, maybe 30 minutes to an hour. Just about every donation was coming in from atheists, and they were commenting with their donation. And if they weren't commenting on their donation, they were just making comments on the page itself, because you're able to do that on GoFundMe, make a comment without making a donation.
So someone who was religious... Someone who was religious was upset atheists were trying to give money to the Baptist Indian school, and so they created their own page, and atheists came to the Christian GoFundMe and donated even more money.
Correct. When they took it down, I think it was over 1,000. I don't know if it was, I don't remember. I know for sure it was over $1,000 when they took the page down, because we've had someone locally looking into where that money went, because obviously people made those donations.
Right.
I don't know where all they were from, but they would want to know that their money went where it's supposed to go, and that's still being looked into, I believe. So,
yeah, that visibility is so critically important for reputations, and people's livelihoods can be ruined if money just starts disappearing. So that's not cool.
That is true.
Well, anything else about the story you'd like to tell us?
No, the presentation of the money, I guess you could say, for Camp Quest, the atheist community of Tulsa is having a meeting this coming Sunday in Tulsa, and we're going to, my wife and I are going, and a few of the Muskogee atheist community members are going to be there to, just do a little presentation, and for those that aren't aware of what's going on, I'll tell the story of what happened, and just try to make it something nice, and just do a little presentation of the check.
Well, great. Well, Matt, thank you for your work and donating and putting this together. Any big ideas in your future? You're going to raise some money for something else?
Well, let's just hope that yes. I just don't know what. This is not something I planned, but I'll always keep my options open. And I've told people this has been very stressful, but I would do it all over again in a heartbeat.
Couldn't they have just said that even God works through atheists or something like that?
Well, you would think, or they work in mysterious ways,
yeah.
Or whatever bullshit that they, the cliched shit that they say. You would think they'd come up with something to accept the money, but I think pride got in the way, and I think that's also in their sayings. And that hubris, that's one of the 7 deadly sins. So
yeah, I think pride is some kind of sin. Yeah. Oh well, it's just what it is, and you and many others have stepped up to try to do the right thing. So for that, we salute you. And Matt, thank you so much for coming on the Phil Ferguson Show and telling us your story.
Well, thank you so much, Phil, and I'd like to personally thank the entire world for all of their donations. These came from all over the world, and I really, really appreciate it.
All right. Well, great. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Phil.
Here's an excerpt from Mum, Dad, I'm an Atheist by David G. McAfee.
It is the same highly regarded concept of an afterlife that allows misguided religious people to justify the mistreatment of those who disagree with their religious ideologies. They are simply trying to protect you from eternal damnation in the afterlife by condemning you, insulting you, and even disowning you in this life. It is not to say that becoming open about your disbelief is always going to be met with these negative reactions, and, in fact, that is precisely what this work is hoping to prevent. But it is important to understand that if you experience negative reactions from religious kin, it is probably a result from the religion's teachings, and likely not from any personal vendetta or hatred.
Mom, Dad, I'm an Atheist by David G. McAfee is now available at atheistaudiobooks.com.
This is Phil Ferguson with Polaris Financial Planning, the home of science-based investing. I see people owning really bad investments all of the time. Many advisors are paid a commission by a big company to sell you something you may not need. It's kind of like church. They create fear, then they tell you what you want to hear, and then they take your money. What you want is an advisor that is paid only by you. That is a fee-only fiduciary advisor. Remember, people work for who they are paid by. You can contact me, Phil, at PolarisFinancialPlanning.com, or listen to the cleverly titled The Phil Ferguson Show. Each show, we have an interesting investing skeptically topic and an interview with someone fighting to end religion. Polaris also gives 10% of gross revenue to support the growing secular movement. You're not just getting better investments, you're helping to change the world.
Only on Secular Media Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Phil Ferguson, and of course, this is the Phil Ferguson Show. With me this week, of course, as every week, is a special guest. This special guest is named Mary, and no, it's not her real name. And there's reasons for that because of some of the things we're going to talk about are pretty sensitive. But Mary and her husband had an account at a large broker-dealer whose name you probably would recognize, but we are not going to mention them by name, and there's a couple of reasons. We are going to cover some things that, quite frankly, concern me about getting sued over. And two, I don't want the listener, you who are listening to the show right now, to think that this only applies to this broker-dealer. This can potentially apply to any and all broker-dealers. So we're going to go over some of the stuff that you should look out for in your accounts and some of the stuff that happened to Mary and her husband. And so we're going to talk about that. Mary, are you there?
Yes, I am.
All right. And for the listeners, Mary is a listener of the show, and she hears me talk from time to time. And the thing that started this whole conversation months ago is at some point I was giving numbers about what the market has done and what you should expect to make. And I guess, Mary, you looked at your statements at that point in time?
Yes. I started getting concerned in January when I got a whole new slew of papers that I was investing in things called MLPs, and I didn't know what they were.
And for the listener, MLP is Master Limited Partnership, and we have talked about them on the show, but you bought them or they wanted you to buy them?
We bought them. We owned them. They bought on our behalf.
So without talking to you about them, they just bought them?
Yes. And by law, when you buy new stocks or new funds, they have to send you a prospectus.
Right.
And that's what we got in the mail. We got 6 new prospectuses.
Was that because you had 6 MLPs or you had 6 different things?
6 MLPs.
Wait, I didn't remember that. You bought 6 different MLPs.
Yes.
And was this like 1 or 2% of your portfolio, or was it a bigger percentage?
I don't really know.
Okay, because I don't want to talk dollars because that's not the real important part, at least not at this point. So your money was put into 6 different MLPs, Master Limited Partnerships. And this was an account, and it's ironic that we're doing this week. So the listeners, if you heard last week's episode, okay, if you didn't hear last week's episode, stop and go back and listen to last week's episode. It's important. Last week's episode, I clearly detailed that in a broker-dealer industry, they now have generally 2 ways they can do things. One is where they make all their money from trades, commissions, kickbacks, yada, yada, yada. And then they have this other thing that's the growing part of the business, which they call wrap fees or managed account or whatever, where they can charge 1% or more, and then they're supposed to now kind of sort of being working for you. Which type of account did you have?
We paid a flat 1.5% to them. That's all we thought we were paying.
Okay, so you're paying 1.5% per year.
Yes.
And I don't want to get specific dollar amounts, but this is a big account.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's an account that, it's not $20,000-$50,000, but you're paying 1.5%, which I think is kind of on the high side. But okay, if you're getting really good service, and even though they're charging you 1.5%, they went and took your money and bought master limited partnerships, which, for the listeners, if you've missed the old shows, do indeed pay commissions to the person that sold them. And so you saw MLPs. What else did you see?
I read through the prospectuses, and when I say we bought 6 MLPs, that we had two separate accounts. One is a beneficiary IRA, the other is our main account. So it was 3 MLPs, but in these 2 accounts. So there were 6 different purchases. And I read through these prospectuses, and the MLPs charged their own fees.
Of course.
Of 1% for this and 1% buy-in, and then an annual fee, and then all this other stuff. And what really horrified me was that they were all in energy. And we had set 2 rules when we opened up our account with this guy, was that 1, we don't want to invest in oil, and 2, we don't want to invest in any Koch brothers industries. I mean, those were our limits. that was it.
Wow. It's funny because we've talked multiple times, and it's one of those things that every time I talk to you, this story gets worse. Because I don't remember you giving them that rule. And if you didn't know, by law, an MLP, and this is also for the listeners, an MLP by law can get the vast majority of its revenue must come from oil or gas pipelines. That's the industry they're in. That's what they have to do to qualify this. And it's something that, people in Congress got some encouraging help, some donations or whatever, and someone in the industry wrote this law, and they passed it and created a whole category of type of corporation that doesn't fit anywhere else. And so you specifically said no Koch industries. You specifically said no oil, but yet that's what they bought, and they got paid commission after charging you 1.5%.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I'm waiting to see if this can possibly get worse. What else we got?
So we started looking at how we had been performing. We have been a very hands-off investor. We live primarily on my husband's income, and my husband had been very ill, and we had to take some money out to pay some hospital bills, and our money guy kind of blew us some shit about it, of us being wasteful. And I'm like, I'm sorry, paying the doctor isn't like going out and buying a Ferrari, okay? I'm good with this. And so we started looking at the data, and after talking to you and doing some more research, my husband sat down and crunched the numbers. And over the 2 years we had our money with this company, they had lost 2.5% of our capital during a time when the market wasn't losing. I have no problem in understanding that there is inherent risk in the stock market. I do have a problem when the stock market's doing well, that I'm still losing capital.
And just for the listener, and of course, specific dates could matter, but we're just going to ballpark it here. In the 2-year time period ending about today, the S&P 500, when you include the dividends, is up about 14%. And so while the market was up 14, you lost how much again?
2.5% of our principal.
Okay, so you lost 2.5%. Now you say of your principal. Is that different than the account going down?
The account went down. It was just this. What we not only didn't get more money and increased value. This is we were reinvesting dividends. We took nothing out other than the money for the medical bills.
Okay, and you're not using that to make the account smaller.
Exactly.
You took that out of it, and so the ignoring the money you took out, everything that you put in at the end of 2 years, you had 2.5% less.
Yes, I'd have been better off cashing out and stuffing it in my mattress.
And if the market had gone down 15-20%, you'd be delighted.
I'd be overjoyed. I'd think, woohoo, he did a great job.
But the market went up 14, you lost 2, so you underperformed by 16.5%.
Yeah, say that number again. It makes me feel so bad.
Now, you got to focus, Mary. This is for the listeners' benefit. But so you had that, and you also mentioned, and this, I think, is a very important point, and I do not mean this in a negative way to you whatsoever, and I know that you're not going to take it that way, but the listeners don't know that you and I have talked multiple times, so I wanted to warn them. They also approached you about buying bespoke mortgaged tranches.
Oh, yes. And that was probably my third rule that they knew right off was not going to work with me. Back when I had a career, I worked in IT in the financial industry, and I was actually part of a team that wrote the code in the 90s that created the debt collateralized industry specifically for mortgages and so on. I wrote the code that caused the Great Recession. So you're welcome.
And so I bring that up not to embarrass you, but so that the listeners understand that you're not someone fresh off the truck, right? You can code, you know IT, you've worked in industry, you've had involvement in corporations all throughout your life, and you were intimately involved with something that basically broke the financial system, and this guy came and tried to sell it to you?
Yes, but this guy always treated us like we were the village idiots, that we couldn't handle this kind of money. We just weren't sophisticated enough. And my husband has a PhD, he has a master's degree, I've got a college degree too. We're not stupid people. And every time we would start to question something like, hey, we don't want to be in any oil stuff because my husband already works in the industry. This was a financial decision, not a save the environment decision. It was, oh, you just don't understand. And it was very galling to my husband, especially because he's very proud of the stuff I've done. And to be dismissed by this guy and then find out that he was doing worse than if we had just thrown a dart at a dartboard.
Right. And of course, the financial crisis that was caused by the collateralized debt obligations, CDOs, was 8 years ago.
Oh, it's going to happen again with auto loans.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic. But the amazing thing is the industry is coming back and starting to do the exact same thing again.
Yes.
And so they presented you. Now, it's got a new name, right? They put a new name on it. They put a new package on it. But when he presented it to you, did you find out in advance this time? Was he suggesting you buy these?
Yes. This was before we purchased the MLPs. And he called us and wanted to schedule a time to talk with us. And he started talking to us, and I wrote a note to my husband and held it up. I'm like, can I swear on your show?
Yes, you may. Actually, I insist. Okay.
Holy fuck. He's trying to screw us over. It's 2007 all over again. And it was, I tried to end politely, but I just called him an asshole and walked out of the room. I just couldn't believe he blew off everything we'd ever said to him like that.
And of course, this is another product that pays a commission.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it paid a commission to him. I knew it did to the brokerage firms because those were the people I worked with when I was in IT.
Sure. And there's all kinds of ways, and this is one of the things I get on a regular basis, not just you. And matter of fact, I'd been meaning to, and it's getting bumped again. Someone gave me their account, and what they had, not as bad as yours, they were underperforming the market by 4% a year. And they were wondering why, and so I won't spoil it, but there's some reasons why, and it's really, really, really difficult for people in the industry to even get close to matching the market, and I'll go over those reasons in another show. But did they also have REITs in your account? Do you remember?
Yes, they did. I think you discovered them.
Yep. So I just wanted to make sure I remembered correctly. So also you had what is called non-traded REITs, and we've talked about them on the show many times. This is something that you buy, and it can be very difficult to get out of or very expensive to get out of. And so, when the market's up 14, you're down 2.5. Did you go and talk to this person? How'd that go?
It did not go well, and I should have been the one to talk to the money guy, because at times I'm used to dealing with these financial types, and my husband, who is a rational, honorable man, is not. And when my husband said to him, you're down 2.5% in principal. The market did this. We missed out on that. You've cost us over $100,000. And my husband takes it very personally, because we have a son that has issues that we're going to have to take care of for the rest of his life. This is important to us. And the money manager is like, oh, you just don't understand. And then the money guy said, well, you're invested globally. You don't understand. It's so complicated. My husband lost his temper, lost his shit. And
yeah, it's a very insulting to tell a really intelligent person that they don't understand something.
Yes. And my husband said, I'm a smart man. You've dismissed my wife, who knows more about debt collateralized securities than you'll ever know. You've treated us like garbage. We want our money. And that ended the relationship right then and there.
So, he left it as basically you're fired and we're going to take our money out.
Yes.
Okay. And at some point in time, unbeknownst to you, what did the advisor, dare I say it, what did this employee do?
This was done on a Friday, and about a week and a half later, we received a letter from the corporate office that was dated that Friday. So it happened that Friday when my husband got mad at him, and it said, you are now in a brokerage account.
Okay, and so I'm just going to recap at the point of being painfully redundant to the listeners. There's a classic brokerage account where the salesperson, i.e. the broker, works for a broker-dealer, can sell all kinds of crazy things and make all kinds of commissions and trading fees and all these other things. You weren't in that side of the business. Well, you were, but you were over in this side where you're paying 1.5%, so that you weren't supposed to be paying trading costs and all these other things, but you still were. They took it out of the managed care side, where you're paying the 1.5%, and they moved it back to the brokerage side. Any idea why they might do that?
Oh, they did that because then starting 2 days later, they liquidated everything, moved it to cash, every single dime, and it's a 7-figure sum. And we had to pay trade fees now because we were in the brokerage side instead of the managed account.
So if I understand this right, each quarter you're paying a percentage, the prorated part of 1.5%, so that you don't pay trading costs.
Yes.
Then, even though you'd already paid the entire quarter in advance, they moved it over to the brokerage side, traded everything, and charged you how much to trade everything?
Over $5,600.
Over $5,000 you are now being billed for, even though you paid to not have to pay those fees.
Yes.
Wow. That is staggering.
They didn't send a bill. It didn't even show up until we just got our final statement from them. We noticed it when the money that got transferred was approximately $5,000 less than it should have been.
Right,
and
because they don't send you an invoice. They just take it out of your account.
Yes.
Because they own your account. Because the person that you were dealing with is an employee of the broker-dealer. So the person that advises you is also an employee of the same corporation that holds your money.
Yes.
Okay, so, and again, this is one of the things that I talked about, ironically, last week, that my business model, I'm the advisor, but TD Ameritrade holds the money, and so we work together, but I don't control TD Ameritrade. TD Ameritrade doesn't control me, and they charge what they charge, I charge what I charge. It's two different relationships, and all the costs are clear and published and upfront, but you got a surprise over $5,000 that you can't control and you can't undo.
Yes.
Okay, now here's the really funny part, because I know it's not really funny, but interesting part. If the broker had done this and you made money, you could have ended up with a huge tax bill and capital gains and ordinary income tax, and even lost other things that you could write off on your taxes if the account had actually gone up.
Yes.
But luckily for you, the account was down, so you're probably going to get some tax loss credits that you can carry forward into future years. But did you guys put in writing that you wanted everything sold?
No, not at all. And my husband believes that he didn't verbalize that entirely either. He just wanted our money. And there's some dispute about that. But it was never in writing. My husband never sent an email. He never sent a letter overnight. None of that ever happened.
Because now, just for people that are listening, I don't know if they can understand how bizarre this is. So I just had a new client come over that has about $2 million. And he had a broker-dealer account, and he's underperforming 4 or 5% a year. And he basically has 100 blue chip stocks, which makes it real easy to compare to the S&P 500 index. And so you have 100 different stocks that are all the names that everyone knows in the United States, underperforming the index by 5%. And he says, just sell it all. And I go, oh, because he's had this account for like a decade. It's a lot of money, a lot of growth. And if you have too much capital gains in a given year, you can trigger alternative minimum tax. You can lose housing allowance. You can lose deductions for your kids. You can lose the credit that you're going to get when you buy that new Tesla. You can lose all kinds of perks on top of the 28, 35, 45% in tax you may have to pay just on the gains. So what we ended up having to do was he met with his CPA. I met with his CPA. I talked to him over and over. We built a plan, stock by stock, figuring out what we could sell and when to minimize the effect on and tax repercussions. And I sent it to him in a spreadsheet, and he had to approve it before I would sell the first fucking thing. But in your case, with what you mentioned was a 7-digit account, this guy gets tweaked, moves you from the percentage of assets under management over to the brokerage side, sells everything, and pockets $5,600 in commission fees.
Yeah, so it was just final fuck you as we went out the door.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Is there anything else that we should know or think about? What should the listeners do with their accounts?
I think for me, it is trusting that you can handle your money. And by that, I mean, you have to find someone that has the knowledge you need. Like you trust your doctor. Your doctor went to medical school. He knows what he's doing. But that if someone demeans you, and this guy demeaned us over and over again, tell us how we didn't understand. He thought, his receptionist thought I was the cleaning lady once, and I don't dress like,
wow.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of stuff here. You can't have an honest relationship, and that's what having a financial advisor should be, an honest relationship. You can't have that with someone who is acting in their own best interest every step of the way.
Well, and this goes back to something that is now kind of in a weird way becoming a little phrase that people like to hear. People email me and tell me that, I love this. So this was the case for you. Oh, and by the way, once he moved the account, didn't you contact the broker-dealer firm and ask them about that?
Oh, yes, and I also contacted the SEC.
Which I'm all for.
I was angry. I was very pissed that he did this.
And when you contacted the brokerage firm, what did they say about him trading and selling everything?
Oh, well, I'm sure he was acting as a fiduciary.
Well, they claim, and I disagree, they claim that he was acting as a fiduciary until he moved your account to the brokerage side.
Yes.
And then once he moved to the brokerage side, was he a fiduciary anymore?
No, I didn't know that until after I got the letter.
Right, but that was the way they're treating it.
Yes.
I'm
on my own. I am my own investor, and if he screwed me, so what? And
so one of the things that I keep hitting home with is that if someone is a fiduciary, why that word's so hard for me? If someone is a fiduciary on some of your accounts and not other of your accounts, it is my learned opinion, they are not a fiduciary, period, full stop. It's like going to your attorney and then going back to your house and finding the police waiting for you, and they say, well, your attorney called us. And you talk to your attorney and say, you said you wouldn't tell him. Well, I wouldn't tell him, but I told him this one thing. Well, then you're not a confidant. It's not how that works. So if the person is not always working in your best interest, then they're not working in your best interest. And clearly this person was not working in your best interest. He found a way to cheat the system to pocket another $5,600 as he kicked your ass out the door.
Yes, but I want the listeners to take note that there was other family money with this guy, and that got moved within a week as well. So he didn't just lose our 7-figure account. He lost another 7-figure account. So I hope that $5,600 tasted really damn good, because it cost him a shit ton more money than that. And I'm gonna pursue it. I know it's only $5,600, but at the same point, people like that have to learn that behavior like that's not acceptable.
Right. And I'm going to tell you what I told you on the phone before, so I don't mind repeating myself. Don't say it's only $5,600. I'm of the opinion this is a principle thing, and this person has probably been doing this for years, and no one's made the effort to even give him a slap on the wrist. So I encourage you to do that. I know you're going to deal with it, not me, so it's easy for me to say, but someone needs to know, someone needs to be alerted that this is a bad company and people should not do business with them or him.
Exactly.
Whew, that's
and
a lot.
I'm guessing this isn't the only person that does it within this company or other brokerage firms. This is, when you have an account like that, if we had been way up and we hadn't been watching it or something, we wouldn't have noticed that money being gone.
I had a client recently that contacted me after one of my episodes about non-traded REITs, and they had $500,000, and it was all in 3 different non-traded REITs, and we've gotten the money out of one of them, but the other 2 we're still working on, and we're hoping that by the middle of October, and this is a multi-month process to get this money out, and a couple of the firms will say, we will redeem shares on from time to time on a quarterly basis, and you have to apply weeks in advance, and you have to fill out all this paperwork, and they only will do 2%, and you have to be in the first 2% to actually apply. So that's the kind of stuff that is out there, and it looks like you had more than your fair share of it.
Yes, and I don't want to be in that position again. So I'm taking more charge of it. I'm building a relationship with people that can help me manage my money better than that, and do it without screwing me and my family over.
Excellent. Well, is there any other cautionary tales or information that you want to share with listeners that might be in a similar situation?
Avoid debt collateralized securities like the plague, really. None of them are good. Avoid them. They're bad.
And that's one name, and the other one is bespoke mortgage tranches. That's the new buzzwords.
Yes, bespoke. I am so over the word bespoke.
All right. Well, Mary, thank you so much for being on the Phil Ferguson Show and sharing your story. And I know it's a little bit of a pain, and we talked about this, that maybe it's cathartic for you to talk about it on the show, but maybe, just maybe, it helps somebody else out. So that's the real important thing.
Yes, when you're exiting a relationship, if you're considering exiting the relationship, be careful. You really have to watch your own money, because they're going to try and grab as much of it as they can. And
just in case, I mean, we can't fix how yours went down, and obviously you're working with someone who's an over-the-top douchebag. But listeners, if you're hearing this and you have a broker-dealer person that you can't function with, that belittles you or thinks ripping you off, contact me first. We'll go over your accounts and your positions and take a look at what you've got. There is a possibility that the money can move from your company to another company without involving the individual person that you're dealing with. The first time they'll know that the money is moved is when it's gone. And they'll call you and say, what happened? And then it doesn't matter. So you can take away their power to fuck you one last time on the way out the door.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mary, thanks again for being on the Phil Ferguson Show, and have a fantastic evening.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show on Secular Media Network.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed that little segment on brokerage firms and what could happen. And it made a nice contrast from the previous week, where I actually talked about an email exchange I had with somebody that worked in a broker-dealer firm, and they gave the impression things weren't so bad. So clearly there is a possibility, probability even, that it's selection bias. I see the bad cases. So, but it's something. Take a look at your accounts. Make sure you know what you own, and review them. And speaking of reviews, I went and looked at my iTunes page, and of course, the Phil Ferguson Show is there, and many, many other places. If it's not somewhere that you like to listen to podcasts, let me know. But according to the data, people download it from like 30, 40 different places, so I think it's almost everywhere. But I went to iTunes to see if I had any new reviews, because I had one that I was going to get to, and there's like 5 or 6 more. So thank you for everybody who gave me a review, and thank you for all the people that have the 5-star reviews. Those are even nicer. But I do have a 3-star review, and I wanted to share that with you and see what you guys maybe thought about this. This is from Irrelevant Nickname. I really like the host's investment philosophies and solid reasoning behind it. Oh, how nice. The mix of topics is a bit odd, sure. Going from investments to secularism, it feels like this is really 2 different podcasts spliced together. Yeah, kind of my intention, so that's okay. Back to the quote. But somehow he makes it work. My complaint is the gratuitous foul language. Uh-oh. I'm not offended by it, and drops the F-bomb rather liberally myself. In the appropriate context, In this context, I can totally see it as a matter of heavy emphasis on something, but the last show I listened to, number 177, oh, I wonder what that was about. The profanity was completely unnecessary. It came across as unprofessional and annoying, and it undermines his credibility. My opinion only. YMMV. Okay, I'm not sure what YMMV means, but hopefully it's something really cool. So yeah, it's I don't know that I'm really concerned about being professional. I just do my thing, and unfortunately, this person didn't like it so much. So that's a heartbreaker. I can't worry about it too much, because when I started the show, I was told by pretty much everyone that knew me, you can't do it that way. So this is the way I do it, and it's the way it's going to be, unless I change my mind randomly someday, and that could happen. Another one from Skip M11. Great podcast. That was easy to read. Daria024. I enjoy the mix of finance and atheism. I also think it's really generous and kind of you to give financial advice both on and off the show without requiring anything in return. Oh, so that's sweet. Scraperian67. The podcast quickly became my favorite. I started listening in archive, and I'm now listening in almost real time. Great guests, great topics, never disappointing. My only regret is that I can only give it 5 stars. Oh, man. Flattery will get you everywhere. Next one, Baron Rogue Tire Guy. Okay. Phil provides awesome logic and semantic investment advice. Systematic investment advice. Great guests and interesting topics. Top-notch podcast. There's a couple more, but I don't want to bore you completely. The other thing, of course, conferences. What have I got coming up? On September 17th, I will be going to Omaha. They are having Apostacon this year. It's a much scaled back kind of mostly Saturday night hangout, drinking, and a few more things on Sunday. So it's going to be perfect for me. It's going to be a little bit of a long day, because I'm just going to drive straight over for 7 hours, be at the conference, visit with everybody Sunday morning, then drive 7 hours back. So that's going to be fun for me. But if you're somewhere in the Midwest or Western Midwest or Plains states, Omaha is the place to be on September 17th, 18th. A few weeks after that, the FFRF convention. And for those of you who have never met my wife, it looks like she is going to go with me, and we're going to make a longer trip out of this. And just for laughs, we're going to drive. It's in Pittsburgh, which I think is about 8-hour drive from us, but we're going to drive 4 hours, spend the night, maybe see a little sights somewhere halfway across, finish our drive, do the convention, and drive halfway back Sunday night. And then, of course, return home on Monday, which is Columbus Day, because my wife gets that day off. So we're going to make a 4 or 5 day trip out of that. The FFRF Freedom from Religion Convention is in October. That is October 7th, 8th, and 9th. So check that out if you're anywhere in New England, Midwest. You can drive to it, fly to it. It's Pittsburgh is a pretty centralized location for a large chunk of the population in the United States. Obviously not if you're on the West Coast. And the 21st of October, I will be going to Milwaukee, which is a much shorter drive for me, for the Myth Information event. And I'll get more details specifically there, but I think it's a debate about God. So if you like debates and that kind of stuff. Plus, of course, it's in Milwaukee. So if you're in Chicago, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, even Indiana and Michigan, it's not too awful far for you to get to. The tickets are pretty darn affordable, but I think space is limited. So please check that out before you make any plans to go. I think, we got one more maybe one more, maybe two more. November, Skepticon. Yes, I will be at Skepticon this year. It is November 10th, 11th, 12th, and 13th. Again, a long weekend for that. That's in Springfield, Missouri. That's in November, so go check that out. I'm not aware of any others that I'm going to go to, but of course, if you're putting on a local, regional, or even national convention and you'd like to have someone on the show to come talk about it, please let me know, and we'd be happy to share that information. And of course, if you need a speaker, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, you know what I mean? I'd be happy to come and give a talk. The newest talk I'm working on, I'm not sure where I'm going to give it first, is called How to Beat Your Child Like a Good Christian. So that's going to bring in some of the material we had several months back about the gentleman who was selling virtually indestructible chastisement devices, or what I call the child-beating sticks. So looking forward to giving that presentation and seeing how that goes over. And we're going to wrap up the show, so thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you at some convention somewhere. Please feel free to say hello. I'll talk to you later. Ciao.